Thank you very much for being here. Next, I'm going to talk about in the admissions for the health professions and that, what is it that we are emphasizing and wanting besides grades, 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 numbers, 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 admission committee scores. It is so easy for students to believe that that's only what we look at or that's what we're going to emphasize to, diminishing everything else that we really need, and that's not going to be the case. So as I've said, my notion here is I think students fall into a trap of the did that syndrome, did that, and I should get in. Where I see a great deal of misunderstanding and a great deal of misconception is what we want here when students call it shadowing and volunteering. So I'm going to actually talk about research a little bit and then these two in this portion of the talk. So again, I'm going to try not to use these words because we're actually talking about what experiences have you had. And this is not just a list. It's not just clocking hours, okay? So, more myths. I promised you myths. I'm going to write a whole book on erroneous facts. It probably won't be a bestseller. Okay, so one of the things I hear from undergrads is, well, research isn't important unless you're going to get a PhD. That's all. Research doesn't count unless you spend 4 semesters in the same lab and it ends up in a publication. No. The admissions committee is only focused on how many hours you spent doing any clinical or extracurricular activity. So the bigger the number, the greater the chances are of being admitted. No. Lots of extracurricular activities will make up for poor grades. That will not work, okay? And I have seen students, and actually there's many different motivations, but sometimes there's a particular psychology involved. If you're struggling, if you would like your grade point to come up, and you're just having trouble with that, come and talk to us, get help, because I have had students say, and they were rationalizing, and it was, well, I'm just so busy in this and this and this and this that I couldn't study more for biology or chemistry. That will never fly with an admissions committee. So you're never going to have grades, and admission scores are always going to count, and all of these other activities are going to count too, but one does not basically diminish the other, okay? More, everyone needs to be an officer in a student organization. I've heard that wrong. I say, excuse me, we have lots and lots of student organizations. Come on, only 4 of you can be officers, right? So, and what some students do is they invent a new organization so they can be the president. So you may have a new organization and you may have 4 members. And the organization lasts for the 2 years before you get into school or whatever. These are not things that you have to do. The notion that every medical school has some secret, every dental school, every PA school has some secret, and it's your job to try and decipher what the secret is for that. I do a lot of recruiting for graduate school in that too. And I say, when people come and talk to student organizations and they're from this admissions office and that admissions office, it's kind of unspoken, but we convey the idea of like, well, there's a secret to getting in here. And you think, oh, I should know you, so I should know that secret. There's not a secret, folks. We're all looking for the same thing. Brains, talent, kindness, okay? You want to excel, you just want all of these things. There's not a secret to one school or another. We all value the same thing. Letters of recommendation I won't talk about in any length today, but you can come talk to me. Students tend to think that I'll get a letter from the person who liked me best. And that's not exactly what you want to do. Sometimes students get letters from teaching assistants. I like to see you get them from the professor. The professor writes the letter and says, so-and-so was in my class, da-da-da-da-da, and speaking to the TA. But this is name dropping in that. This is the politics of it. Nobody uses the words politics with you, but there's politics. So you want to get a letter of recommendation from the heavy hitter. Okay? So, research. Well, I'm a scientist, so I could just jump up and down about this for a long time. If you think about research as a checkoff list, you go, okay, did research, and then the people who have the checkoff list attitude, it comes down to them writing their essay, and they say, did research, went to a meeting in San Antonio, had a great time. There is no reason to admit there. That's the idea that I just have to say I did research and you're going to give me 10 points. What's the value of research? The value of research is that it teaches analytical thinking. And analytical thinking is the basis of diagnosis. So if you said, oh, I did research, or I took care of the mouse colony, that's not telling me anything about you having learned a way to think analytically. So when you write, you have to demonstrate that you're thinking like a scientist too. This feels like you'd have to write 3 pages. Believe me, you can do it in a paragraph, and I can help you, okay? Medical, so just the research here that we'll talk about, but definitely the scientific method, it is analytical thinking. That is the basis of diagnosis. This is why it's so valuable. Whether you plan to ever do research or not, you're going to have to read the literature. You're still going to need to know this. So this is what I'm talking about, this cascade. The scientific method teaches analytical thinking, and you're going to use it for differential diagnosis. It doesn't matter what kind of science you do either. It may be basic science in the bench, it may be clinical, it may be public health, it may be community-based. The people who say, oh, you have to spend 4 semesters in the same lab, you have to get a publication. If you want to be a physician scientist, if you plan to do science in the future, as a health professional, that's a great thing to do, but not everybody has to do that. So you may find out that you did basic science and it wasn't your cup of tea. And then you did clinical science for a semester and that wasn't exactly what you wanted, but you loved public health. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to write about that too in just a little bit. So one of the biggest things, I keep saying there's something I want you to walk away with today. Well, this is about number 5. This is the most important, it's number 5. Okay, there are lots of them. But you need, if somebody is in a laboratory and at the end of 3 weeks they can't tell you what the project is and what the importance of it is, then you need some more training. All of you, at this point in your career, should have a paragraph in your back pocket, okay? And if somebody says, do you do research? The response is, yes, I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Teresa Duello in obstetrics and gynecology, who studies low birth weight. This is what we did, this is what we found, this is what's important. You can actually do that in 3, 4, or 5 sentences, okay? You're going to need this when you interview. It's about speaking intelligently about what you have done. It's very important. I cannot tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of essays I've read where students said, I did research, and they never mentioned the professor. They didn't mention the department. They didn't credit anybody else. They didn't even say what the focus of the project was. What is science? You have a hypothesis, you test it. The majority of students write about research and they never put in the data. Come on, we're all scientists. This is what we're going to get excited about. What did you find? And everybody who writes a grant, every grant agency is going to have a section on significance. Why study this? Why study this? Because we're worried about the health of the fruit fly? No, not because we're worried about that, because we're looking at this as a model of some genetic disease in humans. Okay? So you need to speak about this with some class. Okay? So much of what I learned by the seat of my pants in my 30s and 40s. And I say my goal in giving lectures to you is to help you think and write like you're 10 years older than you are. Okay? You've already arrived. You're the sophisticated one. The other way I put that too is that I'm here, whatever you've done, if it's great, maybe I can help you put a higher polish on it. If not, congratulations. But I'm not here to help you be average. Okay? And actually, it's really easy in the pre-health professions to have almost like a herd mentality, if you'll excuse my saying so. And you think, well, I'm just going to do X, Y, and Z, and I hope they pick me. When instead, you want to have a reason to stand out from the group. Okay? We'll talk about that. You want to be unique. What is going to be unique about your application? One of the things students fall into, this is professor's fault. We bring you into our laboratory and we teach you a technique. So maybe it's Western blots, looking at proteins and that. And you learn to do a Western blot and we applauded. And then we got another student in the lab, and we had you teach that other student how to do it, and we applauded. So you walk away thinking that the importance of all this science was all of these techniques that you learned. That's a cookbook, okay? All of you can learn the techniques. I have students write and say, well, I know how to do northern blots, southern blots, western blots, eastern blots, southwestern blots, you know, and they're listing all of these skills. But you're not applying to be a technician. What was the hypothesis? What did you do? What was the data? What's the significance? Okay? So you have to talk like a scientist. That short paragraph that I just called you is what we call an elevator speech. So say you're going to some national pre-health conference and you're staying at the Hilton and you get on the first floor and there's a professor in the elevator and he sees you had a name tag on and says, oh, you're at the University of Wisconsin. Who are you working with? And the elevator's already taken off, and this guy's only going to 4th floor. So by the time, if you're not prepared, by the time the elevator gets to the 3rd or 4th floor, you say, well, you know, I first got into research about 3 years ago, and I met, you know, Teresa Duello, and the door opens and the person gets off, okay? So what is the compact, high-intensity pitch that you tell somebody? And this is the elevator speech. You will use it to talk intelligently to everybody who asks you about your activities, and you'll definitely need to know it when you're interviewing. Okay? Prepare in advance. So we already covered this, the idea you don't have to spend 4 semesters in a lab. You can do other things. One of the things when it comes to about writing about it is you get to be a revisionist. Instead of saying, well, I did this and I didn't like it, and I did this and I didn't like it, you say, I made a concerted effort to gain research experience in several areas. Okay? I did clinical, I did public health. It's just another way of being well-rounded. If you love and you did 4 semesters, then you write that as your strength. But everybody does not have to do the same thing. Okay, this is what you came for, folks. We're going to talk about the experiences now. So, one of the big misconceptions, the myths and that, and they divide into several different categories and that, but the idea that what your admissions committee may be doing is just wanting you to clock hours. Now, I'll tell you, I know I have enough experience with medical and dental school. They don't take that attitude at all. PA programs that I have seen are interested in the amount and the quality. But think about diversity here, okay? Another example. I had a student walk into my office several years ago and said, I'm supposed to talk to Teresa Duello. I said, that would be me. And the next thing out of her mouth, she says, well, I've done 120 hours of phlebotomy. Is that enough? Phlebotomy is drawing blood. Okay, so let's use common sense. Let's think about this. You're not interacting with the doctor. You're not interacting with the nursing staff to any more than get the room number. You go down and you write in your essay, the patients really like me. I'm sure they did. You had 5 minutes of contact with them. If you were really good at it, you did a good stick, and you were there and gone quick, and you passed the tube off to the lab. Now, is that a valuable experience? Yeah, it's worth doing in that. But what she didn't understand was what we're looking for, is that she learned everything that was probably really going to be valuable in the first 20 hours. And she should have spent the next 100, 120 doing other things, gaining experience. If you're going into the health professions, you know, as a physician, as a dentist, as a PA, and that, you're probably not even going to draw blood, okay? So the idea of 120 hours, is that enough? Don't use the word enough, and don't use the word everybody. Okay? It'll keep you out of a lot of trouble. So there's lots of possibilities, and especially for those of you who are freshmen and sophomore, I love it when the freshmen and sophomores come to me. Have a plan. Don't sit down and do your application and go, oh, let me see what did I do, and try to remember it by hindsight, and then try to figure out whether it was quote-unquote enough. So you can have a plan, clinic, hospital, nursing home, hospice, rehab, lots of different settings that are possible. Lots of different population groups. You may really like children, so you may pick a lot to children because you're interested in pediatrics. But you may work with the underserved, the underrepresented, the underinsured, the elderly, the disabled, the terminally ill, you think forward about what you want to do and even how you're going to make yourself unique. Maybe you are this amazing undergraduate who's just had all of these experiences dealing with end-of-life issues. That's what's unique about your application, okay? Maybe it's in rehab with amputees, you know, and all the problems getting prosthetics fixed. Whatever, you can pick an emphasis and a focus here. So one of the things, the other big problem is people about research and say, I did research, and think that's enough. And then people come to the clinical experience, and what they do is they say, I shadowed Dr. So-and-so, he was really nice, she was really nice, and I really enjoyed it. No information there. Or else, I shadowed Dr. So-and-so, I saw a hip replacement, and I saw knee surgery. I am sure you enjoyed it, no reason to admit there. You haven't told me anything. That's a list, okay? So I always say, what did you take to the situation and what did you take away? So maybe what you took to it was naivety, and maybe what you say is, I was, you know, blown away. I just had no idea at all. Or you may say, my prior experience, you know, had me think about this in such and such a way. Or that there were assumptions that you had that were corrected by the situation. And yes, we value that you're nice, but saying you're nice and saying the doctor is nice is not going to carry the weight. So what did you take away? Maybe total naivety. What actually transpired? You heard the physician deliver bad news. Maybe the patient laughed. Total denial. Maybe the patient fell apart in tears. Maybe the patient didn't understand. Maybe you heard the health professional have to adjust their message to the educational level of the patient. Maybe they were from a different culture and say you're dealing with a woman and it's a patriarchal society and you had to find out that all of the messages basically needed to go top down through the male head of the family. So what did you get out of it? Not Dr. So-and-so was really nice, but did you walk away with greater cultural understanding? Did you walk about greater access to health care? The doctor says, did you get that prescription, you know, I gave you last time? Yeah. Didn't fill it. Had no money. Couldn't get bus fare to the drugstore, whatever. What did you learn? Awareness of uninsured populations. That's the same thing. I'm in obstetrics and gynecology. I'm a PhD, but I talk to our obstetricians and that, you know, and you say, okay, do you get prenatal care? Some women are not getting prenatal care until the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month. And then you've got women who got prenatal care early, and yes, they were prescribed prenatal vitamins, and yes, we know the role of folic acid in preventing birth defects, and it was in their pocket because they couldn't afford the prenatal vitamins. This is telling the admissions committee that you get it. You understand what the career is about. So when you're talking to them as an admissions committee member, you're thinking, oh, I want them to know I'm nice. I'm saying, what do I need to know? And I need to know that you have seen this profession close enough in enough situations that you understand the dedication, you understand the long hours, you understand that there are joys and sorrows, that it's practically a lifestyle. And if you just give me some superficial, I saw a knee surgery, that's just not data I can use. So give me substance. Okay? Give me substance. And I know language differences too. That sounds like a huge ominous project and you say, how, when I write about this, can I limit it to one page? You know, but believe me or not, you can throw in 3-4 words here and there and convey a whole lot to the admissions committee. This is just what I said. We want you to know that you understand the depth and the breadth of the profession, not just the contact hours drawing blood. Okay? One of the biggest things too, you really want to remember this one if you don't take anything away, there's such a strong tendency for the student writer in that to give them the conclusion. And what you want to do is give the admissions committee the data and let them draw the conclusion. If you tell me, oh, I'm really patient, you're asking me to believe you. And you're asking me to believe you on the basis of no data. If you tell me you work with children in the burn unit, I know you're patient. Okay? So you use it through your examples to convey. You don't tell them, you tell them about yourself so that they come to the conclusion you want them to come to. Okay? That's a style of writing. Okay, giving back. I'll make this short, but this is about how big is the heart within your chest. And I don't like the idea of calling it volunteering because I have another story. A young man came into my office about 7 years ago. He was taking 17 credits. He was working 20 hours a week. He worked in a nursing home delivering food trays, and he had 4 children. And I always turn to my advisee and say, you and I are not busy. You know, somebody with that load in a family of 4. Now, if I recommended the best experience for him, would it be delivering food trays? No, I would want him doing some other things and that. But the admissions committee understands that you have to work to put food on the table. They understand that. But I said, if he goes and gets a letter of recommendation from the nursing home, it's not going to cut any weight with the admissions committee if you say, Marcus did just an excellent job of delivering food trays. I've just never seen anybody deliver food trays quite as well as he did. I mean, come on, you're never going to deliver food trays anyway, your own, huh? But if you say, Marcus was a wonderful, dependable worker, and he took his coffee breaks and his lunch hours to go in and write letters for the patients, that tells me where he's coming from. Okay? So it's not a list. Obviously, you can volunteer and do something. I don't care whether you get paid or not. I want to know where it comes from. Okay? So there's lots of things that you can do that are wonderful, that are short stints, Red Cross blood drives, walkathons, marathons, all of those things. And you probably want to combine some short-term and some longer-term. No, I can't give you any number about what is the minimum hours and that, but I can talk to you one by one and give you a feel for that. So, and I'll tell you what, one of the things I've done, there's about 3 letters of recommendation in my life that I wrote, and my highest praise was the last sentence when I said, this is someone I would want to provide health care to my mother. My mother passed in December at age 95, and she was very precious to me, so my highest praise is that I would trust my mom with you, okay? That's what you want to hear. So what's your plan for your personal growth? Again, this is trying to undo the idea of the checklist, but have a plan. Yes, you're going to have to take math and OChem and PChem and on and on and on and that, but how are you going to grow as an individual? Not your education, not your plan, but what as a human being. I saw this was back in 2009, and it's a Parents magazine, and it says, raising a nice kid. And I think so much we focus on, did you have gymnastics? Did you have 4 languages before you were 5? You know, do you do this and that and everything else? But kindness, you know? Do you do that? Do you do this when nobody's looking? Do you do this when you can't put it on your resume? What's really motivating you there? So I tried to divide it out this way, because how do I look at things differently than you do, having been on the admissions committee? Well, the qualities I look for personally in a physician, all of these: honesty, patience, understanding, great social skills, communication, intelligence, of course, and obviously top quality education, that's a given, and being up to date on the medical literature. What I look for personally is different than what my responsibility is as an admissions committee member. I can send you these. I see some people writing these down. So I'm going to look not just at whether you know all this science and you had great scores, but your maturity, whether you've been responsible. It was so interesting sitting on the admissions committee in that somebody had been like a residence hall advisor, whatever they call it when the person is like the floor supervisor. And one of the people on the admissions committee popped up and said, I just want to explain to you what a position, responsible position that is. Because you don't just deal with your problems, you're dealing with everybody's, right? So those that are valuable, responsible, organized, a self-learner, a self-motivated. One of the best things I can put in a letter of recommendation is say this person will always see themselves on their own learning curve, and they will always be a continual learner. Ability to lead, follow. You know what? We don't have a leadership category per se like you might have had when you were in high school. It's because we expect you all to be leaders. Okay? So it's that. Excellent communication skills. Creative approaches to problem solving, generosity of spirit, cultural humility. Let me talk about that. Just in the last slide is that one of the things over time in the literature, we realize that we all differ culturally, and then we have different expectations, we have difference in the way we communicate, our values, our beliefs, all of these things. And in the literature, we used to talk about cultural tolerance. That was kind of the first word that was used in the literature. And that, you know, that word just kind of made me uncomfortable. Tolerance, it didn't sound very warm. And then the literature changed and they called it cultural competence. And that didn't really feel comfortable for me either, because I inserted the word minimally. You know, what is minimally competent? It's like the least you know. It's like lowering, it's like leveling the playing field versus elevating the playing field. And then they changed again, and it got a little better, and it was cultural sensitivity. How to be sensitive to someone else's culture. Well, there's a lot of cultures I don't know anything about. And I always say, I'm never going to be African American. I'm never going to be Native American. I'm never going to be Asian American. I said, but I get to be Hispanic American on the days people think my name is Teresa Duello. And then they find out this tall blonde German walks in and they go, I don't think so. But some days I get to be Latino. Okay. Now we talk about cultural humility, and actually think about that in relationship to yourself and to your application. Cultural humility means I understand that I don't know. I understand that I don't understand. I have to be open to learning and careful, and that because I have the humility to understand that not everybody does it my way. I'm actually giving a lecture next week, and I pulled out this quote that I can send you. And it basically says, other cultures are not a failed attempt at being you. Okay? So everybody's going to be different, and boy, more than anything else, you're going to need to understand that in the health professions. Thank you.